Head resting on my chest, you once told me, in your own skin you felt out of place. Like lipstick on a vulture. This is like shit that like as you're falling asleep you get ideas. And a lot of times I'll wake up and not know what the hell I wrote down. But yeah, like this whole thing's covered front and back with like, 2-3 lines. My name is Kevin Burke. I'm originally from South Suburb of Chicago. Went to college in Iowa City, University of Iowa, and now I live in Austin, and I'm 24 years old. This is the first one I got. And it actually comes from, in my family, we started doing, let me start that over. It comes out of, like, in my family on, like, birthday cards and Christmas cards, we always had this phrase that we'd say to each other and put in there at the end. It'd be like, I love you to the moon, the stars, Pluto behind it. It was just that. And then when I was, like, 2, my dad drove a Saturn, like the car, and I wanted his car to be included. And I didn't know the difference between planets and galaxies. So it was then added on, I love you to the moon, the stars, Pluto behind it, all the other galaxies, even Saturn. And then this is just a picture version of all that.
Oh, that's awesome.
So there's I love you to the moon, stars, Pluto, that's actually a galaxy swirl, and then Saturn. Senior year in college, second semester, I had taken a bunch of, like, my creative writing degree was already pretty much taken care of, but I was still taking writing classes just for the hell of it. I was mostly doing fiction classes, but I decided to take a poetry class on a whim, because at the time I was, I listened to a lot of punk rock and a lot of hip hop, and just a lot of all music in general, but those are the 2 types that I listened to the most of. And I was getting more into hip hop and into the, like, underground scene, and guys like Sage Francis, Saul Williams, who else? Like The Coup, Dead Prez, all them. And the thing is, within that group of people, a lot of them used to be slam poets, like Saul Williams and Sage Francis both used to do slam poetry. I didn't know what that was at the time, and so I started looking into it and was watching a lot of YouTube, basically. And so in that poetry class that I was in, I started writing, and 1 or 2 of the pieces that I wrote in that class I still use now. I just like performing in general, so it was something to do, go out, meet people, and I was kind of just writing just to write and have fun with it, but definitely in the last, like, year, if not the last, like, maybe 9 months to a year, I've started taking it much more seriously, and really making it a regular habit to try and write at least a few times a week. Just sit down, write stuff down, write down ideas whenever I get them, hence all, like, the post-it notes and shit everywhere. Yeah, I think it was Shit's Complicated, which I still use every once in a while. I haven't used it in a while because people give me shit for that one. Like, we'll be hanging out and people will work the title into conversation for shit being complicated. But yeah, that's the first one I ever read down here, and that's one of the first ones I ever wrote to be performed out loud. Like, in high school and other stuff, I'd written some poetry, but it was all pretty crappy. Like, me trying to be like E. Cummings and, like, putting letters on the page and thinking it meant something. They're a lot different. It's like I'm actually using metaphors and shit now.
Yeah.
And, like, challenging the language itself to, better express what I'm doing with fewer words. You know what I mean? So I can get more into that 3 minutes.
Like 4 or 5 things.
It's definitely evolved in that way. And
Really?
like,
You gotta write
book
what...
too.
Yeah. It's
I purposely have the theme of that one being like poems about growing up, whereas now it's still. I mean, it's the way I write in general is I try and keep it all honest. Like lately, all the stuff that I've been writing is just about people that I know. In terms of just like relationships I've had with them, be they like romantic relationships or just friendships or just kind of doing little like portraits of all these people that I know. And that's one called Saber and Gun, and another one called Everything Up to Now, which is like the title of that book. It's just because they're both extremely personal. Like, one's about a guy that I was on the track team with that was like a friend of mine, really close friend of my sister's, that went to Iraq and got killed over there at the beginning of all that conflict. And then the other one was about Everything Up to Now was about because I'm trying to think how old I was. I have ADHD and was on medication for that up until senior year of high school, and Everything Up to Now is kind of about coming off of the medication and what that's been like for the last like 6 years or whatever. Sigh. Well, maybe I'll see you around, kiddo. And with that, the phone line stretching 1,122 miles, give or take a fresh heartbreak, goes silent.
goes quiet, goes dead. Just another victim of bad timing and young tidings, I guess. Hopefully it'll be your hand, and not a handheld I'm holding when the time's right, you know? Now I'll just talk to you later.
The one thing I will say in regards to slam poetry is part of the reason I started getting into it more is it just started, it kind of kept me sane, especially after the first year that I lived here. I really wanted to move back to Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
But because of a bunch of shit that was going on. But like, I don't know, like slam poetry almost started acting as like on stage therapy, so it was like good to write the stuff. Like I felt the need to write it to sort of like get it on the page. Like you can take all your problems in the world and they can be as big as they can be, but if you can take those and put it onto one page, there's something not as scary. You know what I mean? You can sort it out a little better.